Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and some of the most creative people, in my opinion, are people that left the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints more than 20 years ago. Because more than 20 years ago, there was no Mormon stories. There were a few other podcasts going at the same time, and they kind of were territorial, but it was lonely back then. Even I had some questions about things 12 years ago, and I listened to Mormon stories, and John Dehlin actually kept me going to church for 2 years. And then when he got excommunicated and Kate Kelly got excommunicated, I told my wife, I just can't pay tithing. I can't go to a church where these men are acting like spoiled kids at a playground saying, if you don't play by my rules, you can't, I'm not going to let you, I'm going to take my ball home. But they actually could kick you out of the whole play yard, the spoiled 15 brats that run the church nowadays, along with all the other leaders that are kind of problems, we'll say. And so I know a few people that have been out of the church for more than 20 years or didn't believe, we'll say, and still continued to go, right? There's some people like that out there. So anyhow, I thought I'd bring some people on and invite people to come on who tell us what it was like. It's almost like, the pioneers for Mormons happened in 1847, right?
Right.
And prior to that was the Lewis and Clark expedition, right? In 2000 and 1803, I believe.
1812. Oh, it was 1803, yeah.
And then in the 2000s began the ExModus.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there were people that left the church in the 70s and 80s and 90s, right? And there's good reasons that they had. But most of them was because they got offended, right? And people, and I think about it now, there's a lot of offenses that happen that were just swept under the rug. And so anyway, welcome Joe and Bug and Tim, and we expect at least one more and maybe a couple more might pop in. Bug was on the show about 2 months ago, talked about her life, and she only skimmed a part of her story. And Bug, do you want to explain what happened to you at BYU just a little bit?
Yeah. So when I was at BYU, I was assaulted and sexually assaulted, and I pressed charges, which is at that time was very rare. I think it is still very rare at BYU to press charges. There's, at least in the year that I was assaulted, which was 2000, the year 2000, there were an average of 9 reported rapes per semester. I know that there are more rapes each semester than 9, but 9 reported because they make it really hard for you to report. And then also even the counseling, they send you to a counselor, they set you up with a counselor. The counselor really discourages women to report, mostly because, and this is a direct quote, he has a mother too, and it would just destroy his mother to, things like that. So kind of like guilting the victim into, how would his mother feel if,
And that was around 2000, 1999.
That was the year 2000. Yeah. So it was July 24th, 2000. Pioneer Day was the assault.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happens in Utah during Pioneer Day, actually. But yeah, and so I did end up pressing charges. The church did a lot to try and shut me up. BYU did a lot to try and shut me up, but that only further distanced me from the church, actually. So I wouldn't say it was I wasn't offended by the church. There wasn't like an offense. It was more I got to see how sick the church was, really systemically sick. It was from the top how systemically sick it was, from the founding of it to the top, organizationally, how they really shoved victims and tried to shut up things that are crimes, and encourage victims to, instead of speak out and in support of victims and in advocacy of other victims, they try and have the victims shame each other into silence and have that sound righteous and pure. And the Miracle of Forgiveness book I was gifted by several different people, but including my own mother.
Because the person who was abused has some level of fault, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Can I ask you?
You entice somebody, you were wearing something.
Or I'm too pretty and he can't handle it.
Right.
Yeah.
Tim,
where did this happen?
This happened on campus, and then he dropped my body off at the Provo Temple.
Okay, on campus?
Yeah, and then he dropped my body off at the Provo Temple.
Where on campus?
There's a hill called Rape Hill on campus. Everybody who goes to BYU is familiar with Rape Hill.
Down by the nature walk?
Yeah, down by there, but there used to be a building. I don't know if the building's still there, but it's where they used to study. It's got ballrooms in it where the ballroom team used to practice. I think they has since moved that to a different sports center that they built in the year 2000, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's Rape Hill. Everybody, at least in my time at BYU, which is 25 years ago, at least back then, everybody called it Rape Hill because it's happened so many times.
That's
right. That reminds me of two podcasts. Well, not podcasts, but two things that are happening. One is Surviving Mormonism with Sister Gay.
Mm-hmm.
What's her name?
I don't know.
Tim, who's Bad Mormon, the Bad Mormon author?
Oh. I know who you're talking about. Luna?
I'm old, so my brain doesn't work very good anymore. And
Heather Gay?
Heather
Gay.
So Bug, she needs more episodes. She just did a 3-part, and maybe you can get connected with her. Maybe somebody can connect you to her, and your Surviving Mormonism story can be part of it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really hard to watch.
It is. It is hard to watch. Yeah.
And the other thing is a podcast called The Architecture of Abuse that Alyssa Grenfell was part of. I think Lindsay Hansen.
Tim
Kosnoff, who's a lawyer who's defended a lot of victims or whatever you call that.
Yeah. Well, back then when I wanted to sue BYU, because my abuser was employed by BYU to be a security officer for the dorms. So yeah, so add that layer on too. And then on top of that, I went to college early at BYU. I went a year and a half early, so I was also a minor. So I mean, it just gets worse and worse if you look at it. I mean, I had a big case, but I was so intimidated by the Mormon Church's lawyers. Also, I mean, I had general authorities trying to meet with me and have lunch and try and dissuade me from pressing charges. And of course, I still pressed charges. I was kind of a little bitch, I guess. And I just was like, nope, this is wrong. I don't care if this is the end of my life. I mean, I didn't care. My whole intention was to put him in prison and then commit suicide. Because
was he arrested?
Yes, he was arrested. And he was, I pressed charges. I went through 2.5 years of court. And he was sentenced. I think he ended up serving 17 years in Utah State Prison, and he's out now, of course. but
Okay.
I have not kept up with him, honestly. I was allowed to write him in prison. He was not allowed to have any contact with me. I never did write him or have any contact with him after sentencing. Never once. I just felt that I washed my hands of him. You know what I mean? I didn't want any contact with him at all. So even though I was allowed to, I never had anything else to say to him ever.
Oh,
You know, nothing did I have to say to him.
And Joe,
When he got sentenced, he was able to speak, and one thing he did say during his sentencing when he could speak is that he was wearing his temple garments because he believes that the Savior has forgiven him. And so, I mean, he very
claim the
quickly,
repentance card.
yeah, and he was wearing his temple garments, and I was just like, but at that point, I was just I really didn't believe in the power of anything Mormon. I didn't believe in the power of temple garments at that point. But you can imagine that, you know, that could have been so devastating to somebody who did still believe or still was trying to believe or something. You know, I just went through too much by then that I couldn't believe, you know, especially being dropped off at the temple itself. And, you know, I just couldn't believe in the
that's
power of
crazy.
anything having to do
That's
with the
crazy.
temple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So it
Mhm.
wasn't through offense that I left. It was through just watching the systemic wrong that was the Mormon cult, you know, and then having been treated like I did something wrong and that I should repent and that I should also champion the church after that. It just, yeah.
Now, the Mormon church is the best church to get raped in.
Yeah. And they're really the worst. Like I wanted to keep it secret. And I told my young women, or not young, yeah, I guess it would be young women's because I wasn't in Relief Society yet, because I was too young. And they told everyone, so everyone was looking at me weird. You know what I mean? When I started I had to get a lawyer to get my name removed from the church, the records of the church, because that's how we had to do it back then.
Right.
And I told them specifically not to tell my parents. They told my parents, and that created such a rift in my family. You know, people in my family stopped talking to me forever. I've never spoken to some of them since. I was, you know, like 18 when I got, you know, finally my name removed. And, you know, it's been really difficult
And Doug
because
has
they
a
lie.
good
The
saying.
church lies. You tell, you know, they say, oh, no, we'll keep this private. And then they don't. They lie.
What do
So,
you say that like any sin in the Mormon church can be repented of and it has a 24-hour life?
Excuse me.
yeah. And so, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was saying that before. It's a very like, rip the Band-Aid off. Like sins don't really have consequence. Even big sins like rape, they don't have consequence because you go confess to your bishop. You know, he gives you whatever, you know, penance you have to make. Maybe you don't wear your magic underwear for a little while, and that's your repentance. And in real life, you've ruined somebody. You know what I mean? They will never ever be the same again, and they'll never see their future the same again. And their future will always be different. Like you've changed the trajectory of their entire life, and you not wearing your magic underwear is not enough.
That's
You
right.
know,
And so,
yeah.
so you mentioned that some people wouldn't talk to you, but did you ever meet up with non-Mormons 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Ex-Mormons, I mean,
ExMormon,
ex-Mormons.
yes, we did.
And
We
how'd you
did.
do it? Were there bulletin boards? Were they
Yeah,
flyers?
there's bulletin boards, online too, but it was back before MySpace, before Facebook.
Right.
Yeah, there's like www.exmo.com. I swear to God, that's what it was.
And you had AOL.
AOL.
Yep, AOL.
Some
Yeah,
groups.
yep, yeah. It was a
AOL.
lot. It was a lot smaller. We would go have a house party. One of the places we would go is his name Benji Smith's house. I remember that. He was an Exmo. And we would go in very small house parties. I mean, like less than 20 people. And we'd just hang out. We would drink and we'd be all like weird about it. But it was kind of fun to be kind of like scared and looking around and be like, are we all okay? Like, are we burning up? You know.
That's right. No
But it was
lightning bolts
fun.
from God.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
raining
pretty
down on
fun.
your house.
Yeah.
Joe,
We get to know each other.
Joe left the church unceremoniously around
Mhm.
25 years ago as
Yep.
well.
Yeah, I lost my faith in God while I was a missionary in 2001 in Peru, and couldn't tell anyone about it. Didn't want to tell anybody about it for years. Came back from my mission completely disaffected from the church. Very soon after that, stopped attending. By 2003, I had moved out of my parents' place. Now, I moved into a van, but I'm also at my parents' new place up here in St. George. This was down in Mesa, Arizona. I moved out of my parents' place and stopped attending, threw away my garments. That, no, as you say, unceremoniously, no ceremony, walked to the garbage can, threw them away. And I was able to live authentically for the first time at 23. And so, that was me that was when I unofficially left the church. As people who know my story at the Church of Korihor and read my book, The Korihor Argument, it was 10 years later, 2013, when I was officially excommunicated.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Because you hadn't done anything loud enough to be excommunicated until
That's right.
2013.
That's right. It was kind of a mutual no contact with me in the church. A lot of people don't have that benefit. A lot of people, the church, especially if you're paying tithing, the church, sends somebody to bring you back. I was a poor college kid, trying to put myself through film school to become the next Steven Spielberg. And when I fell off the map, I fell off the map and nobody came looking for me, and I was fine by me. And
you were just a civilian from that point forward.
Yeah. But and then I had my experimentation with alcohol and so forth, but mine was with people who had never been Mormon.
Right. So you didn't have any buddy to commiserate with who was ex-Mormon?
Yeah. No, not really. Most of my friends.
It was a lonely exit for you.
Yeah, kind of. But I'm kind of a lone wolf soul, anyways. But most of my friends at that point were theater kids. Even the Mormon ones were drinkers or pot smokers, and and so I fell kind of into the open, welcome arms of a never Mormon community for the most part, or a community in the arts where it just wasn't surprising for people to have been fill in the blank, Jehovah's Witnesses, evangelicals, Orthodox, whatever.
Buddhist.
And to not be practicing, especially in the film and theater programs down in Arizona. So, I had a much softer landing than most. But I do remember at the time thinking at the time, if you left the church, it oftentimes was because either you read something on the website, on the ExMormon website, or you read a book. And I can't say that Martha Beck's Leaving the Saints convinced me that the church was wrong. By that time, I knew the church was wrong and that there probably was no God. But I happened to see Leaving the Saints by Martha Beck on a table and picked it up and read it. And that's when I learned there were lots more reasons than what I knew. Like, I knew about Joseph Smith being a Freemason. And I remember, that was like the big dirty secret, growing up a 90s teenager. I knew about the seer stones and the controversy about seer stones, and the chocolate colored stone and things like that. That was the weird, controversial Mormonism. I didn't realize that people my parents' age had done the penalties in the temple. Or that, you know, when you would shower, you would have to take off the garment and loop it over one arm and another arm, and then rotate your body in the shower so that you could shower without ever actually taking the garment off. You know, things like that. I remember reading that book and going, bullshit. What is ex-Mormons? I don't believe in the church either, but what is ex-Mormons make bullshit things up? Like I think I would have known about that. And only come to discover that
I had maiden aunts who did that.
Yeah.
Okay. Never married. They died in their 90s, 100. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this was 25 years ago. I didn't know anything about people washing each other in bathtubs with cinnamon whiskey and things like that.
Right.
Until years later.
Tim knew a lot of that stuff, and he still would go to church even through the 80s and 90s. And Tim, when was the last time you were sort of active?
April 2001.
2001. And you lived in Southern California?
Yeah, Hesperia, California.
And was it lonely there, or were there other people who were ex-Mormons that you could commiserate with?
Not there. It was through, back in the 90s, we had this wonderful thing called the internet just starting.
I've heard
Actually,
of it.
I had experience with I had experience with sending emails and stuff when I worked for Lockheed, so I knew about sending emails. And then there was this thing called Genie. General Electric had this bulletin board service they set up, and there was a Mormon section on there. And we would discuss religion, and we talked about all kinds of stuff on there. And my mother knew back in World War II some of the people who she knew Monson before he became a GA. She dated Ezra Taft Benson's son.
And she called him Tommy Monson, right?
She called him Tommy Monson. And I happened to mention that one time on this site, and this woman, Phyllis Bray Duncan, I think was her name, and she lived up in La Selva Beach, California. She called the church security. She wanted to know, check up on me. She was checking up on me because she didn't like what I was saying on there. And the next Sunday, I go to church with my bishop, and I think I was ward clerk at the time. It was either ward clerk or exec sec, I can't remember. And he said, "What's this about Monson and your mom?" And I says, "What?" Well, church security called, stake president called me, talked to me, want to know what was going on. I says, "My mother knew him in college at BYU." What's wrong with that?
Wow.
And then we go to a regional conference in Palm Springs, and Monson's there, and he said something that reflected back to what I said on the internet. So I knew by then that they were watching me from about 1991, 92 on. And then AOL came about, and there were Mormon discussion groups on AOL through the 90s. And I was sharing all kinds of information. And somebody got really pissed and reported it to my stake. Well, somewhere it got down to my stake president, my bishop. They knew I went to Mormon History Association. They knew I went to Sunstone. They knew that I wrote Mormon history. They knew that they knew that I was the one that they would send people to if they had questions about the church. And I have a website, a Google Drive with all these documents on it that I share with people now. This is what I shared, and this is what they excommunicated me. They excommunicated me because I was sharing this stuff online, and as it's all true, it's all church history, and they didn't like it, and so they, in May of 2001, excommunicated me. And in my excommunication letter, it doesn't say why they excommunicated me at all. It gives no reason. So
yeah, it's kind of a loosey-goosey thing document. You guys know that I'm still back in American Fork, but I have my letter of excommunication framed up on the wall, and I know that I was excommunicated for conduct for apostasy and conduct unbecoming a member of the church, because I had to negotiate that with my stake president. But it actually doesn't say it in the letter. It's just like, you've been kicked out. What else do you want to know?
Yeah, they don't say it at all.
Yeah, but that's
and
how I
then
got him. That's how I had to negotiate that with him, because he wanted to kick me out for adultery, even though I wasn't cheating on my wife. He tried to convince me that I should plead to the high council that I was addicted to pornography. I said, but I'm not. And he's like, well, I'm like, I said, let me get this straight. You guys, I've told you this story before. You came to my office and tried to convince me to find a reason why I can be excommunicated for. I said, you can excommunicate me for word of wisdom. He said, we don't do that anymore. And I was like, okay, well, I grew up, people got excommunicated for drinking beer. That I knew people who did.
yeah.
And I said, you can't excommunicate me for adultery. I don't cheat on my wife. And I said, but I guess you can. I said, so it's just down to apostasy. And he tried to convince me. He said, they can only excommunicate you for apostasy and conduct on becoming a member of the church if you join another church. And I said, that's so not true. The September 6th were kicked out for apostasy. And he's like, who's that? I'm like, oh man, President Mitchell. Okay. So I'm like, okay. So I'm like, if you look at the man, he said, well, yeah, you can be kicked out if you teach people things that cause them to leave the church. And I said, yeah, that's me. And I guess he wasn't expecting that. Because he liked me. He wasn't expecting that I was one of those snarky ex-Mormon atheists who told people that Joseph Smith was, a pedo. And so I said, no, that's where you misunderstand. I'm a nice guy. I'm just also the guy who tells people that. And people have left the church. And I didn't tell him at the time that I was in the final editing stages of a 500-page book all about my experience and all about why, not so much about why people should leave Mormonism, but why people should, adopt critical thinking, and how my journey led me to understanding critical thinking better. And that's the Korihor argument. But yeah, so I was excommunicated before the Korihor argument was posted. Matter of fact, I put my big speech at my hearing at my court of love as the last chapter of the book. And so, yeah.
Well, I know that I was reaching people all over the world, because there are even people who are in the Seychelles that contacted me. We didn't hear about any of this stuff. And I'm going, well, this is church history,
Yeah.
Church history. And they don't know. No.
I am curious, looking at the comparison between our experience, the experience of people who left back in the early 2000s or earlier, and people now, people in the church now. I see so many situations in which I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine what that would be like. And I'm curious what Bug thinks about this, actually, because when the announcement was made yesterday, I think it wasn't yesterday, that girls in the church now can serve as young as 18. And I was like, on the one hand, it seems right to have it be the same for girls as for boys. On the other side, I'm like, something about this rubs me wrong about, is it get them out of the house younger? Anything that involves, let's get the girls involved younger, makes me immediately flash to other ideas. I'm like, anyways, I'm curious what, as a woman, and a woman who went through what you went through, Bug, what
I think
that's
I think
right.
what it's interesting to me because well, maybe it's different at other schools. I went to BYU, of course, but at BYU, the freshman class was very, very interested in just getting married, finding somebody and getting married that year and starting a family. But there were really smart women there who also were looking at graduate school and wanting to stay in school and not starting having babies until, like, they were interested in just getting schoolwork done. And I think that those who would be interested in like going on a mission might do the mission at 18, become very, very fervent, like in their religion, then come back from a mission and feel behind in school, and then maybe not have that goal of having a master's degree or a doctorate because they'd feel behind and they just rush towards marriage again. I don't know if it has something to do with that, or it has something to do with retaining women in the church because they don't have that opportunity to see real life outside of, their parents' home. That could be it too, because I think, once you're out and in college and, you're going to have a dorm room and stuff like that. So it's not real life, but it's much more real and independent than being at home and having family prayer every night, And so it could be that they don't want to have women have that taste of real life and the real world and independence.
Yeah.
It could be that too.
Because I think like either I don't know what caused the timing. Okay.
Oh, I know what caused the timing. The timing is now they're already into their senior year of high school, right? And they don't have the whole summer to mill about it, to think about it. They're going to graduate, they're going to be 18, and then it's like apply for admission before you can apply to go to college.
Yeah. This announcement, because this the administration just yesterday announced at the same time, the U.S. political administration, as you guys have heard, I'm sure, that there are all these women-dominated degrees and fields that are no longer considered professional, and largely so that the government doesn't have to subsidize loans for them.
Yeah.
And it's like, it feels like the church, strangely enough, because I had thought for a while, like, the church isn't exactly in lockstep with Trumpism and the MAGA movement. But with the Dallas Oaks or whoever he wants to be now, in the Oaks era, I feel like we really are seeing a shift. Something is shifting in terms of the church administration.
Well, back when I was at BYU, I was talking to an administrator about they were trying to figure out some way to keep youth because they knew they were losing them right out of high school. Between high school and mission age, they were losing a lot of members, and they wanted to come up with a ceremony to keep them, to have more commitment out of them after baptism. And this is like now, gosh, that was 40 years ago. I had this conversation. It took them 40 years to figure out, hey, we're losing them. How are we going to keep them? So, bam, they graduate from high school. Let's send them on a mission right away. I had a year of college under my belt before I left.
I think I understand what you're saying, where the timing with the administration and the church lining up like that, it's almost like, I wouldn't even say sly way, because it's just sort of so in your face way of demoralizing women into family and home.
Right. Don't go to college. Go on a mission. Find a husband.
Go on a mission or just get married.
Go on a mission, get married. And you know what? There's a couple things going on as well. It's probably okay to have younger women go out as far as safety goes, because lots of the proselytizing is just on Facebook.
Yeah, right? It is. There's so much
social media missionaries, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got these young women that, those of us who served with sister missionaries in missions, can speak to this. You have these young women who can't go on dates. They can't go out and have a good time, have fun, go to a movie most of the time. They can't, in most missions, their only interaction on a regular basis with boys is going to be with these missionaries at district meetings, zone meetings, mission conferences. It does feel very much like they're trapped in. I remember even in my mission, and half the missionaries, my mission were, or more than half, were Peruvian, and it's like there. I remember many times thinking, is this are these young women just kind of like stuck in here with us, like in kind of like a matchmaking service, and it felt really icky and gross.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm like, and then how are we supposed to keep our heads in the mission field and not pretend like somebody's supposed to meet their eternal companion in this room right now? It's like,
Or is this the pond that they are limited to? Like this is this what they're destined to? This is their only choice, and because God had a feeling to send them to that specific place. I don't know. I feel like it just further restricts women as well. You can't go to college. You can't choose where you want to go to college because all the other colleges, other than BYU, whatever, are not worthy of a Mormon. You know what I mean? Like, or evil or too worldly. I mean, there's so many restrictions placed on women specifically. I know there's restrictions placed on men as well. I'm not trying to, say that there aren't, but I feel like this is just restricting even more.
But I mean, it's interesting now. People tell me this. Some people have told me this has changed, and I hope it has. I do hope it has. But growing up in the 90s, or 80s and 90s, and all the way into when I left the church, the whole sweet spirit idea in Mormonism was very pervasive. And that was, pretty girls get married at home in their home ward after they graduate from high school. Girls who have a hard time finding a husband. This is so gross, and I'm disgusted even saying it, but this is the way it was. This is the impression I had in growing up in the culture at the time. Less pretty girls ended up either at BYU to find a husband, or worse, ended up going on a mission. And that was always my understanding. Our understanding was that's why the mission age for girls is 21. They need a chance to go out there and find a husband if they can. If they can't find a husband, well, then they go on a mission. And it's like, it was disgusting. It was gross. I mean, it's gross to even think about it now. But at the same time, I look at them like, if that exists at all in the church now, taking these girls and saying, "Oh, you can go on a mission at 18. We'll just fast forward you to find last ditch effort, find a husband in the mission field." I mean, it's gross.
Yeah. That's probably their plan. That's probably their plan.
Something about it just feels icky.
It does.
Yeah.
Another thing is for sports stars, they're allowing them to serve 1-year missions. And I wonder if they're going to offer that to more of the younger kids, because they can get a lot of work out of them on the social media missions and send them home. And it won't give them enough time to look up the word Mormon on a search for and catch up to all the other stuff that's out there.
Yeah. I don't know how by 18 any of those kids haven't looked up on a search engine anything about Mormon. I mean, for real, nowadays, I mean, back when I was, I was born in 1982, so, we didn't have ways to look up things back then. We had to use a real library.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know if you remember back in the 90s. I mean, you don't have to confess to this if you don't want to. Back in the 90s, there were LDS chat rooms, like LDSchat.org, I think it was. And kids these days wouldn't have any understanding of this, but chat rooms were the seediest, nastiest, dirtiest places in the world, including the LDS ones.
So that means you miss them, Joe?
I will say this. I did well in LDS chat rooms. I will say I had 2 women break down and cry when they found out that I was engaged. They were both women I knew over the internet from high school age, but only one of whom I had actually met in person. No, I did meet both of them in person, but I had one of them. No, one of them found out. One of them sent my mom a letter while I was on my mission, and said, I wanted to let you know so that you can, maybe, I hate to do this, but I'd like to ask you to let your son know that I found somebody and blah, blah. And she Dear John'd me through my mom. My mom's
Oh,
like, know this
oh
person?
wow.
I'm like, yeah, I went on one date with her in high school. I didn't think she'd thought about me since then. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the other one was shocked when I almost shotgun married my first ex-fiance.
Wow.
Yeah. Hadn't even talked to her when I did get Relief Society room shotgun married to the woman who was my wife for 20 years.
Right. You know, that reminds me, I distinctly remember trying to go to our local library and try to find any book on Mormonism, right? And it was really hard because
Yeah.
there just wasn't a path to it. You didn't know what subject to look up. I guess if I looked up polygamy, I probably would have found more things.
Well, there
didn't
was
even
No
bother
Man
me.
Knows My History was just about in every library.
Yeah, I
There
should have.
was.
I should have found that. I probably did, and then thought, "Oh, I can't." I just wanted to know it was there because it obviously was full of anti-Mormon lies, right?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And there was probably other stuff in the religion section, but you wouldn't want to look there. You wouldn't know where to look.
They
Right.
would always have rows of journal of discourses in the Mesa library. And I remember looking at them going, forbidden fruit, just thinking, oh my gosh, I know
Oh wow.
that was back in the day when it was like, listen, we'll read quotes that the 15 have chosen from the Journal of Discourses and put into the
Right.
manual for us. But you don't go to actually read it. You have to be a very spiritually attuned person to actually
I
read.
owned a set from the 70s on for a long time.
But did you see there's a speaker at one of the Fair Latter-day Saint conferences that I had posted on the channel at Korahor at Hellfire Agency.
Pretty soon that's going to be called Fair Church of Jesus Christ.
Right. Which I'm sure that the folks at the Church of Christ are going to just love.
Right. Right.
But there's this guy who bragged about how he served a media mission for the church as a senior, I think, as a senior missionary. And part of their job was to go to libraries and talk them into selling them anti-Mormon literature, and that the church would, in exchange, give them any quantity of church related materials that they want. And lots of these librarians, they're so hungry for more books to put on the shelves. It's like, oh, so we're just exchanging. He's like, we had a lot of success with it. He said nobody asked, but what we did with them is we took all these books and we put them in big piles and we burned them.
Wow.
I was like,
Wow.
this is, and then he laughs, and all these people at the Fair Latter-day Saint, Fair Christians who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or Church of Jesus Christ or whatever, they were laughing. And I'm like, are you laughing? Has nobody here seen Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? I mean, come on, people. I mean, do you know who burns books? Okay, I guess we have no self-awareness at all. Fine.
Wow.
Just shocking to me. But I had posted a short about it. I'm like, these Mormons be bragging about their book burnings. They're bragging about book burnings here.
Yeah.
This is disgusting. And then I went out and I started writing letters to librarians and saying, if this is true, and totally cool, but as a representative of the Church of Korahor and as the author of the Korahor argument, I would like to personally extend to you my invitation for me to send you a free copy of the Korahor argument. Brand new. I'll pay for it and ship it to you.
I wonder if David Bednar is going to put out a book called My Story.
Oh god.
Right, which would be translated into Mein Kampf, right? If it was German.
That's
was
right.
my struggle.
Struggle.
My struggle. Oh, my struggle. Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
They
My
they
struggle.
had some big ribbon cutting about opening a church in Azerbaijan. Did you
Yeah,
see
I
that?
saw that. Yeah.
My understanding is that Azerbaijan is so corrupt and so, I mean, basically, if you buy real estate in Azerbaijan, it's just understood the whole world over that it's a bribe for Vladimir Putin's government, basically, because they're so closely tied to the Russian.
So are you
Uh,
saying some palms were slicked with some tithing money?
And it wouldn't be the first time, frankly. I don't know if you know, but the International Council of Families, I think it isn't what it's called. The people have the family
Coalition?
reunion. Yeah, every isn't it every 4 years or something? Anyways, the World Council on Families. Yeah, and they are. It's just known that the Russian what do you call it? Russian Orthodox clergy is just filthy, swimming in money that goes through this organization. It's actually listed by several international organizations. Basically, as an extension of the Russian mob, and the Mormon Church has been tied up with it for since the beginning, going all the way back to the 90s. Hinckley used to talk about about how great this organization is, and how they always invite us. Of course, they invite the LDS Church to come and speak at all their conferences. Well, of course, they're giving them millions and/or billions of dollars. Nobody knows how much money exchanges hands under the table at these conferences, but it always wind up with at least one person whose job it is to stand up and bemoan the state of the world, where you can't do XYZ to gay people, and you have to accept gay people as being normal, and being, these challenges to the nuclear family. And it's this big gay bashing and trans bashing parade. And the church has been tied up with it since the 90s. It's disgusting.
Right. So I had a thought. Bug, do you recall when social media started to come around, any podcasts or any other things that were going on, MySpaces, where you could get in contact with more ex-Mormons or freedom of speech type thoughts?
I really just remember the first thing that I got involved in was the ExMormon.com, and that was it, really, at the time. That I got involved in was the ExMormon. Yeah. Did you hear me?
It was so nice. They said it, and that StreamYard said it twice. Yeah, and I remember ExMormon.com became kind of the toxic thing. Do you remember that when it was?
I do remember that when it became toxic, and then that's when I sort of stepped away from it. Actually, yeah. And then I guess I didn't really start hearing about Mormon stories until years later.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure when that started up.
Because people forget this now. I don't know how. Well, yes, I do know how, actually. But in the early days, John DeLynn, that was like Gene was saying, that was the Stay in the Church podcast at the time it started. It was about reconciling your faith with Mormon history and having respect for the legacy of the church. And
New Name Noah had ex-Mormon content, right? Anti-Mormon stuff.
It was, my understanding was, because I had nothing to do with it until it was like I'd been listening to John DeLynn for like maybe a year when he and I were excommunicated just within a few weeks of each other.
Not around 2015.
Yeah.
Wow.
But he was.
John started in September 2005.
Right. But by 2015, once he got excommunicated, his tone shifted.
Right.
Oh, but my understanding was it was when he invited Sandra Tanner on, and that the tone started to shift. But from what Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, in the Mormon historian world, everybody knows there's stuff that the church doesn't want you to find out, or that leaders of the church have made sure that you're not going to be able to find out, that you can't get anywhere but from Sandra and Gerald Tanner.
That's true.
Buck,
That's
were you
why I
aware of
shared a lot
Sandra
of
and
things
Gerald
with
Tanner at all?
Not really. Not until I, found out about them through John Delen's.
Right, more recently.
Yeah, much more recently.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember hearing about them in the early 80s, like, ooh, they're the real Exmos, right? Don't go there.
That's when
And I
I
remember hearing
visited
that
them
there
in
was
the
a
80s.
bookstore that was near the where they played baseball in Salt
Yeah.
Lake. And I
Yeah,
remember
right across the street.
seeing the baseball stadium and was thinking about it, but didn't look around, didn't know what I was looking for, right? So before I got married in 1982 or 3, I could have visited. And I know that Dan Vogel wanted to visit with them to like straighten them out at first because he had heard about them and he wanted to teach them the truth
Wow.
because he
Talk
heard
about a
about them.
journey, man. Dan Vogel.
Yeah, he heard
are
about him
you
on
sure about
while
that?
while he was on his Manchester mission in England.
Okay. Yeah.
He had heard about some minister told him, and said the same thing. It's like by the baseball field is the biggest ex-Mormons, and so he looked them up one summer, and so that's interesting. Yeah, I mean it'd be nice to have Dan or Brent Metcalf on because they are even earlier pioneers than you guys.
Oh yeah.
But
Brent Metcalf's stories, man. I remember him. I had no idea who he was before he was on Mormon Stories with John, and I was like, and his stories about the ERA era,
right.
it was like crazy what the church was involved.
Yeah, and he got to drive Packer and Packer's wife home after some church event, and he said they spoke nothing to each other.
Oh my gosh.
Like a 20-minute drive home.
I thought for sure you were going to say, and she couldn't stop quipping about his little factory.
That's right. She could have been diddling on it. Maybe that's why she was so quiet. She could have been trying to grease the wheels, lubricate the machinery. You never know. But he didn't say anything about that. So Tim, do you recall like Infants on Thrones or what were the other?
No, I really wasn't that interested in it. I was pretty much done with Mormonism.
Right. You wanted to
It
get
wasn't
away from it.
until 2008 when Mike did his temple videos on YouTube. And then I began to listen to John Delen, and I heard about Infants on Thrones. I listened to some of those. And I said, "Oh, I know this stuff. This is not new to me."
So you know what? I remember around 2010 finding that video on the temple ceremony, and I watched it, and it did seem weird to see that it made my ears red, made me a little bit, embarrassed that people in the world were seeing this sacred or secret stuff. But I watched it so I could try to remember the damn thing because it was I couldn't remember anything, and it's just I fell out of a lot of trees when I was young, and so my memory sometimes isn't that great. But I used it. I tried to use it to be a better temple participant.
Oh wow!
Meanwhile, in college, the one of the first times I had a drinking party at my apartment when I moved into an apartment with my best friend, and I'd had like maybe 2 sips of cognac and was certain I was hammered, and cognac no less. And it said, announced to the whole world, "Who wants to learn the Mormon secret handshakes to get into heaven?" And like I had the attention of the entire room.
Really?
Full of theater kids are like, secret handshakes? You're making that up. I'm like, I am not. But yeah.
I mean, I remember talking to friends on the phone back in 2003 and 4. Angels in America came out.
Oh,
That was a watershed moment.
it was. I remember that.
And there just wasn't a lot out there except for bulletin boards. and email. Mine was mostly through email to people.
Do you remember? I'm curious the generational difference. I'm just saying this as nice as I can here. With representation through different generations here, me and Bugs versus you guys. The moment when the South Park episode about Joseph Smith and the Lost Book of Lehi, when that came out, I'm curious what your guys' perception of it was in the church at the time.
So for me, I didn't really see it until like 2010.
Okay.
And it happened like 4 or 5 years earlier, something like that. It came out, but I saw a rerun or something somewhere. And I was thinking, wow, this is for being funny. They tell the Joseph Smith story really, really well. But where are they getting off with this rocket and a hat thing? That is the furthest away from the truth. You guys blew it.
That was me too. That was me too, because that was again another instance where still trying to hold water for the church, even when I didn't believe anymore. Right. I was like, these ex-Mormons will make any kind of shit up that they could. Like I had heard of the chocolate-colored stone, but and something about a hat. But so my generation, in the 90s, I remember reading and in I think it was in Mormon doctrine or something, that the story about the chocolate-colored stone was a rumor and probably an anti-Mormon lie. And certainly the biggest of the anti-Mormon lies was that, and the church has since spirited away, in a cave dug into the side of the mountain. We didn't, of course, that turned out to all be true.
Yes.
But then I remember thinking, okay, it's weird enough without making shit up. It wasn't in a hat, and it wasn't those two stones. It wasn't those two stones. It was the chocolate stone. But other than that, they showed two different stones, which were Joseph Smith's other seer stones. He had like 5 or 6 of them. And I'm like, they were actually clear stones. They were set in silver bows, and it was attached by an arm to a breastplate. I didn't realize that I was just dumb enough to believe the church's narrative at that point. But it was interesting to see. It was a moment for me when I looked at it and said, it's when we were on South Park, it's like they're paying attention. Like I grew up feeling like people don't know what Mormons are, who Mormons are. And the South Park moment for me was, I think we're coming into our own here. We're like big enough that they can't ignore us now. And I felt like there was a shift. Am I crazy? Or is that just my bias, my perspective? Because that might just be my perspective.
Oh no, I was super surprised. I didn't know. And then a part of me was like, even though I was also not Mormon anymore, I felt kind of dirty watching it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble. But I was like, no, I'm not. I'm a full grown ass adult. I have my own apartment and I'm watching this on my own computer.
Nice. Yeah. And South Park, though, that was our guilty indulgence in the 90s.
It so was.
Right. In 2015, the church bought some things from the Community of Christ.
Not 2015.
And they showed a picture, and it was sort of when they bought the original printer's manuscript. No, the original manuscript, whatever it was. The original
manuscript. The original manuscript's destroyed.
Right.
Well, portions of it the church had.
Yeah. And that was like the big news, but they also included a picture of the chocolate rock.
Oh, really?
Right.
And that hit the front pages everywhere.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about recently. Like
in 2015.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Still recent to me. Listen.
It is. Okay.
Listen, the 90s were still 10 years ago for me.
Yeah.
No, the 90s are yesterday, Joe. They're yesterday.
Like 10 years, like I'm still in that phase of like shock when I learned people haven't seen The Matrix. And then like I remember telling my niece, I'm like, how did you get to be the age that you are? She was like 19 or 20. And I'm like, how did you get to be your age and never seen The Matrix? I'm like, I was Mormon and I saw the Matrix, and it was against the commandments. And she's like, I just don't like old movies.
Old movies.
Just say,
What did you just say? Old movies.
old movies. And they're like, and that's the same conversation where she told me, I get that you're a Star Wars fan, Uncle Joe, but I just think that little boy is so annoying. And I'm like, little boy? Are you talking about Jake Lloyd? Are you talking about the prequels right now? I'm like, I'm talking about real Star Wars here. We're talking about
Star Wars, not 3, 4, 5, and 6. We're talking Star Wars.
Right.
Star Wars.
Right. This is 4, 5, and 6. Not
so
1,
back
2,
to when I saw the the brown rock, I thought, wow, they got it right. Yeah. I was the one that was misinformed by the church. The church lied to me about that. And then like 2 years later, Nelson becomes prophet, and he goes to somewhere in upstate New York, and has kids around him, and he does some little shows. They do some little short things. They're doing some social media, some little snippets, some YouTube videos. And he's talking, and he says, when Joseph Smith was translating, he would put a rock in a hat, and he would put it, and he almost put his head all the way into the rock.
I remember that interview.
And then he says, and that's sort of like a cell phone today. It's like, well, yeah.
That's some good analogy. I can't believe they still stuck with that after wasn't it Uchtdorf who came up with that?
Like the Liahona was sort of like a cell phone too, or whatever.
I remember like that is
no, it was not. It was Brad Wilcox.
Oh, was it? No,
I think
was
so.
It really?
I think it was Wilcox.
And what Wilcox
all new to me
about the cell phone analogy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Well, but Nelson does it as well when
Nelson does it as well. Yeah.
So but I hadn't been going to church for 4 years. I see Nelson doing this, and this is pre-COVID. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it was right there. Maybe it was during COVID that I finally was picking up on all these because ExMormon Reddit started up like 12 years ago as well, and so you could get stuff on the internet faster that way. Half of Rebecca Biblioteca's news starts out with, I saw an ExMormon Reddit.
Right.
News, right?
Right. Chino Blanco doing the good work.
So I showed my 80-year-old mother-in-law at the time, she was 80, this thing with President Nelson. But I couldn't find it. So I showed like 5 or 6 of the other ones where he says, a prophet never lies, and stuff like, we always tell the truth, right? And by the time I got the one with the rock in the hat, my mother-in-law was starting to nod off because it took me so long. But I woke her up to see it. She goes, "Oh, is that how it was done?" Just kind of weird.
I'm curious about this. Those of us who have been excommunicated for apostasy, I know that doesn't include you, Gene, yet. But like the things people like, I almost interrupted you before you said that about the chocolate colored stone and all that, because I was about Nelson, because I was going to say this, be careful, kids. This is where you're going to hear the real apostasy, according to Hannah Stoddard and the Stoddards over at Joseph Smith, was it the Joseph Smith Foundation? But now we have lived to see a day and age that shocks me. I'm like, how is it that I was kicked out for apostasy, where there are Mormon opinion leaders on the internet who outright call President Nelson for mainly 2 things, basically labeled him a false prophet for doing that thing with the hat and for
vaccinations,
COVID-19 vaccine. And these people are convinced he is the true prophet of God, but he has led the church astray.
Right.
Which I agree
vaccines.
To even suggest that in the 80s or 90s, you were gone as far as I knew.
Yeah.
September
Cognitive
6th, what the
dissonance.
hell did they get kicked out for? If you can call the prophet a false prophet and say, but I still believe he's been called by the Lord. Like, what the hell did they kick out the September 6th for?
I know. And like now it's so fun to hear Mormons say, you're damn right. Polygamy is the word of God.
Right. Right. Defending polygamy is probably got to be like the most. I think it's probably. I don't think that we could cause as anti-Mormons the most. I don't know if you've heard this. I heard it today and I loved it. I loved it. But Megan, our dear friend Megan from Third Verse, has announced. Before she was an ex-Mormon who was mislabeled an anti-Mormon. Now she's happy to just wear it. She's anti-Mormon and loves being anti-Mormon. But I don't think that we can do any kind amount of damage, more damage than what people in the polygamy denier versus polygamy affirmer camp are doing inwardly to the church, tearing it apart right now. I mean,
That's right.
They're doing the work themselves.
That's right. And that's why I attended the very first Journal of Mormon Polygamy Conference. And I actually went there for free as a journalist. So it was kind of fun. And I interviewed, some of the people in there and did some shows. But to me, it's a gift to be able to have that fight, because just say Mormon and polygamy or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and polygamy in the same sentence is a victory for Satan, I'll have to say.
Right. I mean, I struggle lately to not be too compassionate towards the church, because I actually feel for them these days. It's kind of like you see them scrambling. This whole tank top garment thing, I looked at and just thought, now you guys are, I remember thinking, I'm not against them doing it, but the desperation is becoming quite apparent. We thought, I don't know, Bug, you remember this with the internet age. I remember thinking, we used to say back in the early 2000s, the thing the church never really learned how to do, the ex-Mormons did, and the reason why ex-Mormons are going to win is because ex-Mormons have people who know how to do the internet. And that was what you said back then. And we were really just talking about exmormon.com or .org or whatever it was. That was most of what we're talking about, was SEO, old school search engine optimization.
Right.
Yeah.
What's interesting is the church claimed like the most baptisms ever from the summer of 2024 to the summer of 2025. It's like 320,000 or whatever it is. And I'll have to say that Alyssa Grenfell got about that many subscribers during the same amount of time.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yes, touche, church.
And you know what? I gotta say this. Maybe this becomes a short clip for you. But all props to Alyssa Grenfell, man. Alyssa Grenfell is a lightning rod of Mormon hate right now. And I want it to be said somewhere with my face and my name put to it. I think Alyssa's amazing. I think she's doing great freaking work. And, and it was something that the movement needed. She's become because it's not just that she is entertaining and interesting, because she doesn't really say anything that ex-Mormons don't already know. And that even I think a lot of Mormons don't already know. She's just saying it in a way that's interesting and entertaining. And then all this wave of hate comes at her and she's just resilient. She just, not bothered. And at least that's the way she comes off to me. And I have mad respect for that. So.
That's right. So does anybody have any final comments of what it's been like in the journey since you left the church?
It's been interesting to watch the church destroy itself as much as it has. That the truth about the hotline has come out and all the child abuse that they're hiding, and the billions of dollars that they're hiding. You know, everything's coming out now about the church. They can't hide anything anymore. It's just all being revealed, shouted from the mountaintops, just like it says in Revelation.
Right.
They're getting fucked all over the place. It's fun to watch.
I'm
Bug, you
really
wanna have-
glad. Yeah, I'm really glad that there's more of a sense of community among the ex-Mormon group, and
Yes.
also I feel that it's helpful in that people searching to leave have better um, ways to do it. Because for me, it was really hard to find a lawyer and to do that all by myself, and especially.
less lonely.
Yeah, less lonely, and it's not as intimidating. And I'm really grateful for that because I think that it'll be a lifesaver, literal lifesaver for a lot of people.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's easier to get out now than it was then, too.
And emotionally much more, that's important, emotionally much more easy. Because I do think that a lot of people are drawn to like more suicidal thoughts if they feel stuck for the rest of their life or evil for the rest of their life. And I think now there are ways for them to chat with people who are also ex-Mormon and can also see that they're not evil people. They're just taught that they're evil, and they can also be taught that they're not.
Right. And the church has been forced to acknowledge that mental health treatments are valuable. Every return missionary gets at least, I don't know if it's 5 visits or whatever it is, to a mental health therapist for free.
That's good. That's real good.
And it's interesting, because like I know, self-harm and self-annihilation were a big part of my journey leaving the church, but they've been part of my journey my whole life anyways. But leaving the church really was a major trigger for me, and I want to acknowledge that for you, Bug, what you were saying about it being a part of your story. I felt like that was actually quite common back in the day before the social media craze that started, that people started to leave the church and just walk away. I know a lot of people who went through that, and I know that a lot of people still do. And I will say this, of all the people I give props to about pointing out why the organization I founded, the Church of Korihor, is important. Jacob Hansen of Thoughtful Faith actually gave, I think, the best endorsement of the church I know of. I know he didn't think of it as an endorsement, but I remember on my program when he was on my show, he said, "I like that you're actually building something rather than doing what ex-Mormons usually do and just tear down the church." And he's like, "At least you're creating something." You're muted there, Gene.
Right. His thing is like, okay, John Delaney, you're basically telling people the church is bad, or RFM. All you people are saying, but where should they go? Right.
Yeah.
And at least for you are building someplace that people can go.
Right. Which it started, like Bug was talking about. There are still some people who are getting pushback from the church, like you experienced, that there are people who use quitmormon.org. And this became the catalyst behind the Church of Korihor. Was a year ago, I found that some people were being told by church records that they won't recognize their leaving the church, their resignation submitted through quitmormon.org, which quitmormon.org, if you don't know, it's run by a volunteer attorney in Salt Lake City.
Pro bono.
Pro bono.
The guy's name.
People give donations to it. I don't know how much. It can't be that much. But so many people leave the church using quitmormon.org. When I found out that, and part of that is that they have to get it notarized. That's always been a big part of it. I'm sure you probably went through that, Bug, as well, having the letter notarized. And the way that they do that now is you use an online notary. And my understanding is that some people are getting pushed back from the church saying an online notary is not sufficient. That's not a
Oh,
real
wow.
notary. And so, by the way, I have decided in the last month that I'm just going to become a notary here in Utah. And I'm just going to a mobile, what's called a remote notary or mobile notary. And I'm just going to go up and down the valley, up and down the state here when I'm here locally, and just
The
notarize
Roto
people's
notary.
informations. Yeah. And and so, but my thoughts kept going back to my excommunication. You know, nobody fought me on that. They excommunicated me, but only after my stake president tried to convince me that there's no such thing as apostasy unless you join another church. And I said, what are atheists like me supposed to do? There's no atheist church. I mean, there are, but is it one that the church would recognize? Like the Humanist Association is technically a church, but it's like, would they recognize it? And so I said, that's when I said, we need an atheist church, and it needs to be one that the church has to acknowledge. That church is antithetical to us. They are not just a Christian church, another Christian church that you're attending for a while. No, you joined a church with oppositional views. And I said, so I'll call it the Church of Korihor, and I'll register it here in Utah, and they won't be able to say this doesn't apply here. The state of Utah says it's a church. And so I started with that, almost snarky, you know, just my traditional Exmo atheist snark. And then it became, I met these amazing people like Jules, and I met these, and like Jenny Gage, who was one of the directors who signed
First Herald
document. Right. She was a herald for a while. And then, you know, and these incredible people who got involved in the Church of Korihor, we found that there was a community here, even within the ex-Mormon community, which again, like atheists, it's a community in non-belief, right? Which is great. I love that. And I have been very appreciative of the ex-Mormon community at large. But we have this intentional community forming in the midst of a community of people abandoning one way of thinking and saying, we are the group that's coming together to say, this is about what we do believe, and what godless people, whether you be agnostic or atheist or spiritual, not religious, that we can come together, say, these are values that we share, and we're going to change some things and spiritually grow through service and through ritual. And it's been great. I mean, after a year, we're reinvigorating for a new year. We've got a new slogan. In 1 week, we're going to be launching our first canonization event, where we will officially canonize the Korihor canon. And we're going gung ho. 2026 is going to be our year. So I'm pretty proud of it.
That sounds great.
Super.
Yeah. Community is good. So, you know, that's one thing that a lot of people do miss, you know, their friends. And, you know, the people who we thought were friends at church, they could still call us, but they don't want to because they might catch the same disease.
I only had one member of the church call me after I was excommunicated.
Well, that's
that was a couple of years later.
Foreseeable. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I had missionaries show up like 20 years later.
Right.
Yeah.
Because my records were still in my old ward, and then they transferred them over here, and they showed up, and I told them, I don't want to be contacted. I told you that, you know, don't contact me. And then they show up again, and I says, I sent a letter to the bishop telling him I don't want to be contacted, and you still come here. Oh, well, we're going to honor it this time. And
that's right.
You know,
Tim belongs to the Church of Cats.
I belong to the Church of Cats. That's right.
Contacted all the time by cats. That's all he needs.
Cats. That's all I need.
He's sort of like a furry, but I don't know what furries are.
No,
anyway,
I'm not a furry. Don't even.
Thanks, Joe, Tim, and Bug for coming on.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a fun conversation. It'd be good to have another one of these. Maybe we'll do a Tuesdays with Tim And
Yeah.
let everybody know that on Tuesday nights we have Tuesdays with Tim. And also tomorrow we have the Salt Lake Expositor.
Pastor.
Headline is Apostle's Brother Arrested.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard about that.
That's big news, man.
Amazing. Amazing.
So Sunday afternoons, we have the Salt Lake Expositor show. Tuesday nights, we're in Tim's living room virtually. And even if you're allergic to cats, it doesn't matter. You can still go to Tuesdays with Tim.
They won't bother you. Jan
Yeah.
won't bother you. He just wants
That's right.
attention all the time today. Yeah. They all want attention today.
All right, everybody. Thanks for
All right.
watching. Have a
Thank
great
you for being here,
rest of
guys.
2025. It's almost over.
Mm.
Less than a week to Thanksgiving. And then Christmas is a month away, right? Coming up.
That's right.
Yeah.